On this episode of RevHang,
the rookie from way downtown.
Nobody knows why.
Yeah, no one knows why. I don't think he even knew why.
McLaren dominance made Bohr fans, though.
Exactly. Yeah, we're already on that, huh? The Nürburgring 24 is calling my name. The name of Franz Hermann.
Car development usually stagnates.
Which is better than Aston Martin's, whose car development goes backwards.
It goes backwards every year.
Every single
consistently.
year. Hello everybody, and welcome back to RevHang. I'm Nathan, and alongside me, as always, except for last week, is Ben Bagley, my good friend and co-host. How you doing, Ben?
It doesn't always happen. Sometimes we're both critically injured.
Sometimes. I am still critically injured. You have critically injured yourself this week. Slightly less critically, but hopefully.
Yeah, mobility is a little restricted. It kind of hurts sitting and standing and walking. But aside from that, we're all good.
I understand. Yeah. I still hobbled over here, though. And here we are, back in person.
You did great. You fought through the dogs. And
I did
made it
fight
to the office.
fight through the dogs. That was a fun one. But this is not an injury...
Orthopedics.
This is not an orthopedics podcast, that's for sure. There we go, Ben. This is a racing podcast. Let's get into some racing. We got two to go over today, including the IndyCar race at Road America, my favorite track in the U.S., and the Formula One race at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, which is one of my favorite tracks in F1. This was a very good week.
It's so simple.
It's so simple, and the racing is always so good. It's always good. All right, let's jump right in with IndyCar at Road America. Qualifying the top 10 to give you some context. On pole position was Louis Foster, the rookie from way downtown.
Nobody knows why.
Yeah, no one knows why. I don't think he even knew why. But he did it. Pole position ahead of Alex Palou in second, followed by Kirkwood and McLaughlin. Lundgaard in fifth. 6 through 10 were Rahal, Malukas, Power, Eilert, and Newgarden. Moving into the race, Foster maintained the lead on the first lap. The first half of the race was dominated by cautions and restarts with all the chaos, with many rookies crashing out early on. McLaughlin passed Foster for the lead on lap 4. Palou slowly made his way up through the field after some trouble in the beginning. He was getting passed by everybody, but was always in the top 4 somehow.
All part of the plan.
Yeah, exactly. Lundgaard challenged for the lead until he spun out about halfway through the race. Dixon and Palou went very long on extreme fuel-saving strategies at the end of the race. Dixon did not make it to the flag, but Palou did and won the race while holding off a hard-charging Felix Rosenqvist.
Yeah, crazy fuel strategies on display. There were 3 strategies this weekend, and only one worked.
Yes.
Or last weekend.
Yeah, it was definitely a strategy race, and that was very fun to watch play out because you never really knew where everybody was. And somehow Palou pulled it off, an absolute miracle, and then he drove the cool-down lap as well, which somehow...
just an absolute flex.
When half the field ran out of gas right after the finish line. So, yeah, quite the race. Very hot day. You saw all the drivers getting out of their car right after the race and getting thrown water bottles and beer over the fence from fans. That was a really good race. I think probably my favorite one of the season so far.
A good race to show a non-IndyCar fan, to show why IndyCar is so cool, because you have like the different strategies with the fuel saving, the high speed, but also, it's not like an FIA grade 1 track and all that. Like, it's still got a little bit of rawness to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely old school.
Yeah, but still a fast track, good corners.
For sure. So, moving into the results, top 5 were Palou, Rosenqvist, Ferrucci, Kirkwood, and Armstrong. 6 through 10 were Simpson, Malukas, Siegel, Dixon, and VK. 11 through 15 were Foster, McLaughlin, Rossi, Power, and Eilert. 16 through 20 were Herta, O'Ward, Rasmussen, DeFrancesco, and Rahal. 21 through 25 were Ericsson, Daly, Abel, Lundgaard, Newgarden. 26 and 27 rounding off the finishers were Stingray Robb and Robert Schwartzman. So, talked about this a little bit already, but Alex Palou is an absolute miracle worker.
Yeah.
The guy just was Bluetoothing fuel into his tank or something from the pit lane.
Yeah, no, he hung out in like 6th for so much of the race, and then decided, oh, it's time to go, and also I don't need. I'm good on fuel.
Yeah, I don't need the pit stop.
Fuel saved Dixon. Dixon was pushing kind of hard in the last part though.
He was, and then Palou was in his draft the entire time, and that's probably where a lot of fuel saving came from. He just sat behind on 3/4 throttle in the straight and just coasted essentially.
Yeah. Do you think Dixon could have won if he didn't push it as hard, or do you think he needed to push that hard to keep Palou behind?
It's really hard to say. I mean, Dixon was 2 laps away from the end, so it's hard for me to believe that him, without any draft in front, would have been able to save 2 laps of fuel.
Right.
But it's really hard to say. Kyle Kirkwood been very consistent the last few weeks. P4 this week, so still bringing home a ton of points.
Absolutely cooking.
Mm-hmm. And then Santino Ferrucci, just out of nowhere, is having the season of his life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that guy deserves a ton of credit too, as I sit here and try not to sneeze while talking, which is so much fun.
Yeah. McLaren's kind of fallen back.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed. Is it really Nolan Siegel the fastest McLaren from that weekend?
From that weekend, looks like it.
Insane. Tony Kanaan punching the air right now. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, you had Siegel come in 8th, and then the next McLaren was Award in 17th.
17th, yeah.
And then Lundgaard just nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Definitely wrong strategy for that one. But yeah, kind of crazy. McLaren and what's the other team? Oh yeah, Penske.
Penske once again letting everybody down.
Yeah. The top result for Penske was 12th.
Goodness. At a race that they've won like the last 10 out of 12 races or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always do well here, and they did not today.
Will Power in 14th.
My goodness.
And this is supposed to be kind of like his race.
Yeah, I mean, the strategies were so crazy, though. I mean, Power was near the front the entire time, and then just strategy played out, and it was just Palou.
Yeah.
Palou's day. So, lots of rookies in the top 10, too.
Yeah. A lot of fun safety cars, too. We're making up for safety cars now.
Indeed.
Now they're in the second half of the season, which is kind of nice. Connor Daly tried driving with the toe strap.
Yep, I did see that. He had a tail on his car for a while.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. All right. That kind of rounds off IndyCar. Nothing much has changed in the championship other than Alex Palou extending his already massive lead. So there's that.
You think Pato O'Ward catches Kyle Kirkwood this season with how they're driving?
I don't know. Kirkwood's driving so well. I know Ward's kind of always there, but not really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the top 3 are very clear of the next group. So, I think that's going to be the top 3 at the end of the year. But I think it's going to finish how it is right now with Palou, Kirkwood, Award is kind of what I'm thinking.
Who would have thought that we'd see Santino Ferrucci, Colton Herta, and Marcus Armstrong essentially tied for 9th place in the championship?
Colton Herta is allergic to the super license.
He hates it. He's gotten it's like an asymptote. Like he can get half as close every single season.
Yeah.
Just never approach it.
Yeah, it's brutal. And his championship finishes are getting worse, which is unfortunate. But
yeah, especially while Kyle Kirkwood on his team. And Andretti is...
And his dad is the race engineer.
Yeah, I would say Andretti's a fairly, close-knit team, too, between the drivers.
Seems like it, yeah.
They're pretty good in terms of collaboration and sharing setups. So the fact that Kirkwood is so far ahead of Colton is kind of crazy.
Kind of crazy, yeah. All right, Formula One Austrian Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring. Pole position went to Lando Norris, followed by Leclerc and Piastri. 4th and 5th were Hamilton and Russell. 6 through 10 were Lawson, Verstappen, Bortoletto, Antonelli, and Gasly. Yuki Tsunoda qualified 18th.
Yeah, Gasly in 10th somehow. Bortoletto in 8th, actually. I forgot about that.
Bortoletto in 8th, Liam Lawson in 6th.
That's wild. Good for them, though.
Yep. Liam Lawson was the highest qualifying in the Red Bull family, ahead of Max Verstappen.
Mm-hmm.
That, I'm sure, felt amazing.
For some people.
For some people. Moving into the race, speaking of Verstappen frustration, Carlos Sainz was unable to start the race due to brake issues. His brakes caught on fire after they were locked on when the race started and he couldn't move, and they fixed that, but then they locked on again, erupted into flames at the end of the pit lane. So he was unable to start the race, unfortunately for him. When the race did eventually start, Piastri passed Leclerc into turn 1 to take P2. Antonelli locked up into turn 3 and took himself and Verstappen out of the race. It's crazy there were more cars involved in that.
Yeah.
Piastri and Norris battled for the first whole stint of the race, essentially. Piastri was always hounding Norris, just waiting for a mistake, and some came, and it was good racing for sure. Very
The
entertaining.
only thing that separated them was Norris stopping for tires.
Yep.
And then they had to fight back through traffic to catch each other, and then they continued scrapping.
Yeah. Bortoleto fought off drivers to remain in the points, which was fun to watch. And lap traffic, like Ben said, made the Piastri-Norris battle interesting in the final laps. Watching Bortoleto absolutely hound Fernando Alonso for P7 while getting lapped by Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri trying to lap them behind was peak television right there.
This is definitely one of the F1 seasons ever, that's for sure.
This is one of them, yeah. It's a better one for
McLaren dominance may bore fans, though.
Exactly. Yeah, we're already on that, huh? So, speaking of McLaren dominance, let's go into the results of the race. Lando Norris won, followed by Piastri and Leclerc on the podium. 4th and 5th were Hamilton and Russell. 6 through 10 were Lawson, Alonso, Bortoleto, Hülkenberg, and Ocon. 11 through 15 were Behrman, Hadjar, Gasly, Stroll, and Colapinto. 16th, rounding off the finishers, 30-some-odd seconds behind Colapinto, was Yuki Tsunoda. Then our DNFs were Alex Albon, who had some sort of mechanical issue. Again, second week in a row. And Max Verstappen, Kimi Antonelli, and Carlos Sainz, the other Williams, with mechanical issues. They are absolutely faltering right now, which we are going to talk about.
Currently in the process of trying to bottle their championship as hard as possible.
Yeah. So, moving into our talking points for this race, McLaren are battling. The battle continues from Canada, only it was actually clean this time, except for the one time Piastri almost took out Lando.
Almost. Yeah, that was a little scary.
It was very sketch. Huge lockup. A mere inch away from absolute catastrophe. But it was very fun to watch them race, and I'm sure we will get more of that in Silverstone, which is also a high-speed track with lots of high-speed corners, which is exactly what Austria is. So similar track style, I think, will lead to some more good stuff from McLaren. Yeah. I don't see any other team getting close to them.
The closeness in letting them battle, too, also made for interesting pit strategy, too.
Yeah.
Watching Piastri go, what was an extra 3 laps?
Yeah.
Was it? 3? Yeah.
It was 2 or 3, yeah. And McLaren's, like, whatever they're doing to cool their tires is something insane.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen, like, Oscar was following Lando so closely, and it was like, you never see cars able to follow that close through corners. Yeah. Like, it just doesn't happen because tires get too hot and dirty air and all those things. But, yeah, somehow the McLaren team have designed a car that is able to follow cars through corners, and that, I'm sure, is a testament to why they have been so incredibly successful this year. Max Verstappen, I think, is pretty much out of the championship hunt now. He is, 61 points behind Piastri in the lead. That is well over 2 race wins, and I just don't think Max has the car under him to do it.
No.
Since he's qualified on pole the last 6 times in Austria, and he qualified 7th this time, which, granted, I think there were yellow flags involved, but also he said that the lap wasn't on anyway in his last lap in qualifying.
Both the drivers seemed very unhappy with the cars this weekend.
Yeah. Well, and they've been unhappy with the car pretty much every weekend. It's somehow Red Bull's dev team back at the factory gets on the simulator. They get a development driver on the simulator, and they find some miracle setup that only Verstappen can actually use, and they'll get some more out of the car. I am really convinced that Red Bull is probably like the 6th fastest car this year, maybe, and Verstappen is just driving like out of his mind. Yeah. But also super measured. Like, he's been so We're going to get into this too, but I think Verstappen is incredibly, look at that transition, Ben.
Wow.
If I didn't screw it up. He is incredibly mature now compared to where he used to be as a driver and as a person. Didn't get out of the car yelling and screaming at Antonelli.
I also think because it was Antonelli, maybe he was a little. I think if it was George Russell,
If it was Russell, it would have been different.
a little anger. But you could tell like he was pretty upset in the car right when it happened. Then he got out and then saw that it was Kimi.
Upset, understandably, but he wasn't like screaming. He was just like,
no, not screaming. I guess
he was peeved.
No.
Like if that happened in 2021, that would have been hell to pay. But it did not happen in 2021. I think Max is a lot more measured now in his approach. He's very aware of what he says and what he does, and that's in the car and out of the car. And I think it's just making him even better because his speed and skill is absolutely still there. So,
well, they're gonna take away his video game time if he misbehaves.
Yeah,
so.
Right. Well, he made it past Austria, so 2 penalty points will drop off his license now. So now he has 3 to play with.
Incredible.
Until November.
And then he'll retire.
And then he'll retire. Yeah, exactly. Jokes on Mercedes. He just retires. He's like, I'm not playing with any of you anymore.
I'm gonna go do GT3 for the rest of my life. Sorry.
The Nürburgring 24 is calling my name. The name of Franz Hermann.
I have to go prevent my team from cheating in iRacing again.
Yeah, again. Red Bull is now P4 in the championship as a result of this atrocious race with Tsunoda finishing last and Verstappen DNFing. Yeah, they're nowhere. Without Verstappen, they would probably be like bottom 3 in the championship for sure. It's kind of sad.
Without if Verstappen just wasn't there, they would actually be
last.
Yeah.
So,
outscored by Pierre Gasly alone.
Just thinking if it was just another Yuki Tsunoda style driver in the car, like they'd have say another Yuki Tsunoda, they'd have 20 points and be 9th. Yeah. That's crazy.
Which it is funny that Pierre Gasly is currently outscoring Yuki Tsunoda.
Yes.
Small world.
Small world indeed. Williams, as we talked about, continues to fall apart. They have had nothing but mechanical problems for the last several weeks, and it's starting to plague the team. They had a lot of momentum at the beginning of the season that has completely stalled out, and they need to get their feet back under them to get going again.
Reverse sandbagging.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to come back and win the championship. Carlos Sainz needs to do something. I think he's got a mental block right now. I feel bad for the guy because he's got a lot of skill, but right now it's just not working for him. And I think a lot of it really isn't his fault. Like, obviously, qualifying has been his Achilles heel. Canada wasn't his fault. He got blocked by Hadjar. And then this week kind of was his fault, sort of, but he also had damage on the bottom of his car, which you could argue is his fault, but also, like, if your car's ripped to shreds underneath, there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah, I know.
So, I don't know. Hopefully he figures something out. He's really good at Silverstone. He's got a lot. He's won a race there, and he's, I think, got several podiums at Silverstone. So, hopefully Sainz can bounce back at one of his good tracks. Definitely.
If the car lets him.
If the car lets him. The curbs are not nearly as brutal in Silverstone as they are other places, so hopefully the car does not get ripped to shreds. And then Alpine is kind of nowhere. They have been qualifying okay, and then they just drop like bricks. Colapinto and Jack Doohan, the second drivers this year, have not scored any points. It's all been Pierre Gasly, and he only has 11. So
for the car, I feel like Pierre Gasly has been doing pretty well.
I think so too. He's been kind of anonymous this year, though.
I mean, he's had some. I mean, he's made it into Q3 more times than you would have thought for the car and for his teammates.
That's true. He has several times.
It just doesn't translate to the race.
Right, exactly. And then all of a sudden, Sauber is like a legitimate midfield contender now, scoring points in the last 3 races in a row, I think.
Yeah. They're actually looking like they might have the form to be,
top 6.
Yeah, top 5 maybe. If Williams keeps up, maybe top 6.
Yeah.
They're only 10 points behind Racing Bulls. And well, Liam Lawson made a big jump for Racing Bulls in terms of points this weekend, but that's not always a guarantee. And if they keep on this trajectory with them both scoring points, then
yeah. And again, Silverstone's a pretty similar track to Austria in terms of the style of track, very high speed, a couple of sharp corners, and then a lot of high speed corners. So I mean, obviously Silverstone's a much more complicated track, but with it being similar stylistically, and it'll probably be similar temperatures because it's hot literally everywhere right now. It's possible Sauber just has another great weekend. Hulkenberg qualified. Where did he qualify? Like 17th or something? Where did Hulkenberg qualify? 20th?
20th?
No, that's not right.
What?
So he qualified last. Sainz didn't start.
So that would have been 19th.
Yeah, so he would have started 19th. Essentially, he would have started in the 20th grid slot, but you can make that up in turn one easy.
Made up 10 places.
Made up 10 places to finish 10th. No, ninth.
Yeah.
So, yeah. P9 from P20 on the grid with his teammate finishing 8th.
Yeah, Bortoleto.
And Bortoleto just had so much speed all weekend.
Yeah,
like, it wasn't like
place.
a crazy race where he just ended up in 8th place. Like, he earned it. Almost finishing 7th. If he had one more lap, I think he would have passed Alonso.
Yeah, I feel like that's where you really see the difference in car between like the Sauber and Alpine is the ability to hold your position in qualifying, because you can qualify great with clean air and perfect tires and all that in whatever car you have, it seems, this year. It seems like everybody's had a chance to qualify in Q3, no matter the car. But you see the not great cars drop back so quick.
Sauber just all of a sudden, the upgrades they brought in Imola are clearly working. And I'm here for it. I would love to see Sauber come back and start doing things. They haven't, even since their Alfa Romeo days, they had the one season when the regulations changed in 22, I believe.
Yeah.
When they were like pretty good for the first half of the season with Bottas.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But past that, they haven't done much of anything. They've been kind of the joke of the sport.
Their car development usually stagnates.
Yeah.
No matter how well they start off.
Yeah. Which is better than Aston Martin's, whose car development goes backwards.
Backwards every year.
Every single
consistently.
Year. But yeah.
Do you think that performance will carry over when Audi takes over the team? If Audi takes over the team?
Well, I think Audi's taking over the team. It's hard to say. I can't imagine it'll get worse. I mean, adding more resources and a ton of money and experience. I don't know how much of the team is going to be the same, though, is the thing. Like, they might just liquidate and clean house and just bring in all their own people because they have the resources to do that. They have the pedigree to where they can get the best people to come and develop their cars. But at the same time, they brought in leadership to facilitate that transition, like Andreas Seidel and what's his face, the old Ferrari guy,
Mattias Binotto.
Mattias Binotto. I think he's the technical director, which is a role that's very good for him, not team principal. So, I mean, with those two kind of at the helm, with all the F1 experience that they both have. And then bringing in new talent over from, I'm sure they're bringing people over from the hypercar program. I'm sure they're going to be somewhere in the midfield next year. I don't think they're going to be top of class, but I'd say midfield for sure. I think Cadillac is probably going to be back of the midfield. Probably not a back marker next year, but I'd say back in the midfield.
Aston Martin is kind of my reference point for what happens when a team does a buyout and replaces a lot of the staff and then brings in two notable series veterans to try to turn things around, and then ends up in 8th place behind Haas.
Yeah. That's probably a good way to look at it. However, I think there's a bit of a difference between Volkswagen Group and Lawrence Stroll in terms of the knowledge base there. So it's really hard to say. I'm not looking forward to predicting all of the stuff next year because it's impossible to know because we're not going to know until the engines.
We just try to predict who who could possibly be on the podium? No
Yeah.
order required.
But with all the new engine changes too, like we've had these same engines forever since like 2016, I think, maybe even before that. So with the new engines, it's gonna shake everything up. Just depends on which engine manufacturer is the best. I think that's gonna be the story of next year more than the aero. I think everybody's gonna be scrambling to figure out the aero because it's all active now, and it's gonna. I can't imagine the layers of complexity that adds. So between the aero, I'm sure some teams are going to get that figured out right off the bat. There's probably going to be one or two that are just like crazy ahead in aero, so probably really fast in the corners. And then you're going to have, 2 or 3 teams that are with the dominant engine manufacturer, because that's pretty much always how it seems. I can't imagine it going any other way than one engine is really good and the rest are kind of just meh.
Yeah.
And who knows who that engine's going to be.
I bet it's going to be Mercedes.
Probably not Ford. Nothing against Ford, but this is their
Brand
first
new.
time.
Yeah.
And probably not Audi for the same reason.
Yeah, I would have bet on Red Bull having a decent engine program just because they're Honda ties, but
They're
since
not
Ford's
anymore.
taking it over,
Yeah.
and I didn't realize how involved Ford was going to be, which, I mean, good for them for actually not just slapping a sticker on the side of the car and
Yeah.
actually helping to develop the powertrain. But yeah, Ford Red Bull, I don't think is going to be that high up. I think
so either.
Mercedes has kind of the shoe-in for
Mercedes would have been my guess. Mercedes or Honda, I think, are going to be the two that have the best shot at being.
Yeah, because Mercedes, the reason they became so dominant is because they nailed the engines at the start of the hybrid era.
Yeah.
And they've kind of been consistently nailing the engines, or at least midfield on the engines.
Yes, they've been up there, but Ferrari was also up there until they got nerfed in 2018 or 19 or whatever that was.
Yeah, but even when the engines were fast, I mean, the reliability wasn't necessarily there. We even saw it in like 2022.
I mean, it's really hard to say. It's hard to. I think Ferrari will be contenders, just because everything else they race in, they're winning. Like in hypercars, Ferrari is dominant right now. They just won Le Mans again, I think.
3rd time in a row.
Yeah. So Ferrari's crazy good in every other facet of the sport. I think this refresh with Fred Vasseur at the head of everything in the team. They've got brand new engines they can develop from the ground up. They don't just have to band-aid over the engines that they built, the cheaty engines, which I feel like Ferrari engines have been completely lackluster since then.
Yeah.
I feel like they just had their main engine design, and since they haven't really been able to change it much, it's like
catch up essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So I think with the slate wiped clean and all the experience, I'm sure they're pulling from hypercars for this new the first push in the new regs. I see Ferrari contending, maybe not winning because they're still Ferrari, but they'll probably be at least where they are now, which is in the top 6 for sure in terms of both drivers. They'll be in the top 3 fastest if I were to guess.
That's fair.
But as far as everybody else goes, like Red Bull, I don't think Red Bull is going to be good next year. I don't think they can turn it around, especially if Max leaves, which is complete hearsay. But
who knows?
McLaren, I don't know if they can. I think they can, pull off a good transition into the new regs, if the Mercedes engine is good.
Mm-hmm.
But if Mercedes is not, far and away the best,
I mean, even if Mercedes is second best, McLaren has typically been the fastest Mercedes-powered car on the grid in this newer era.
For a little while, yeah. They nailed the aero, which is why. So I think, again, McLaren might have an edge on aero since their aero development has been so good the past few years. But they might be one of those teams, if they can't get a good engine, they'll be good in the corners, but then the straights, they're going to fall back. And I think next year is going to be really interesting to see how all those dynamics play out with cars that have strengths and weaknesses, and then they're talking about how the engines are so bad that you have to downshift on the straights once you get to the top of 7th gear or whatever.
Yeah, they haven't made any changes to that, have they? To the engine spec?
Nope, they locked it in a couple weeks ago, and they're like, "Yep, this is what we're going with." So,
I don't know. I think Mercedes has an edge too because they have so much electric development knowledge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's going
and
way
it's going to be
more
super electric reliant.
So if I were a betting man, I think like you, I would say Mercedes engines probably are gonna have the edge next year, but it's just impossible to know.
Mercedes powertrains, how about that? Maybe Ferrari will have the engine benefit, but I think overall as a package, Mercedes will probably be tops, at least in reliability, if nothing else.
I think that's fair, and it's just really it's all speculation. It's impossible to know right now, and we're not gonna know until Australia next year. So
I learned about it in a dream. It was revealed to me.
Pit stop championship time. That's enough jibber jabber on that one. Piastri won this week with a time of 2.1 seconds, followed by Lawson and Hamilton. 4th and 5th were Hadjar and Colapinto. 6th through 10 were Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, Leclerc, Tsunoda, and Russell. Standings haven't changed much. Ferrari's still way out in front. Both Ferraris are.
Which is still weird, but
yeah,
whatever. It's because they pitted Hamilton 5 laps early.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we need this. Overtake of the week. I give this one to Will Power for his overtake on Kyle Kirkwood on lap 4 at Road America. It wasn't the cleanest overtake. It wasn't intentional, but it looked so cool.
It was an absolute IndyCar overtake.
Yeah. Would have been highly illegal if it was an F1 because he went way off the track to do it, but it's IndyCar. So.
That is one of my favorite things about IndyCar and these Midwest tracks.
Yeah.
Like,
they'll just go
America
wide.
They'll go wide, they'll go off track if they want to pass you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. If they have grip on one side of the car, that's all they need.
Just got McLaughlin trying to pass Lundgaard in the grass. I'm just like, I'll do it. Don't make me do it.
The car can take it.
Yeah, I like that about IndyCar a lot. Is they let people race, and unless you like seriously boot somebody off the track, like they let stuff go.
Yeah,
you need to be seriously at fault to get a penalty, and then it is a harsh penalty. You get a drive through. Yeah. Or a drop to the back of the grid or something.
There are no 5-second penalties in IndyCar.
No, it's like you ruin someone's race, so your race is going to be ruined. You're going to the back, kind of thing. But the trade-off for that is they let people race a lot harder, and I think it just makes things so much more exciting. And also, IndyCar is just so much better. I'm sorry. I love F1. I love the glamour and behind it, but IndyCar as a series is just so much better.
Every single time I see somebody stop for fuel and then peel out with a wicked burnout from their pit, I'm just like, God damn. That's so cool.
I know. All right, let's move into our predictions. For this week, pole position went to Louis Foster. What did you say, Ben?
Alex Below.
I said Will Power.
I would have loved to see somebody actually predict that.
Yeah, right. Podium was Palou, Kirkwood, and Ferrucci. What did you say, Ben?
I had Palou, Kirkwood, and Power.
Almost nailed it.
Almost.
I had O'Ward, Palou, and Lundgaard.
Penske boys letting us down again.
Winning number of pit stops was 3. What did you say, Ben?
I had 4 for this one.
I had 3, so I get that point.
It might have been 4. It was real close to 4 for some of those drivers.
Yeah. You want to take over so I can try not to like sneeze and talk at the same time?
Formula One Austria. Race results, if you weren't listening, was Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, Hamilton, and Russell in 5th. I had Piastri in my first spot, and then I had Norris, Russell, Verstappen, and Antonelli in 5th, with Hulkenberg as my dark horse. All the drivers except for Verstappen had Verstappen, never mind. All the drivers did not have a great race on my roster.
I had Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, Russell, and Leclerc, with Alonso as my dark horse. Fastest lap went to Piastri. What'd you say, Ben?
I had Piastri.
I had Norris. Just barely beat me for that one.
So close.
Driver of the day went to Bortoleto. What'd you say, Ben?
Bortoleto deserved it. I had Piastri.
I had Bortoleto, and ye of
Really?
little faith.
That's crazy.
Ye of little faith. You looked at me like I was crazy, but I told you. I told you, and I told you.
It's a Lewis Foster level call out.
That this week was his week, and I was so right. It was absolutely his week.
That's crazy.
Pole position for Mid-Ohio in IndyCar. What do you got, Ben?
I think it'll be Ferrucci on pole.
I've got Colton Herta because
Bold.
The dream hasn't died
Mr.
yet.
16 himself.
Yeah. Podium, what do you got?
I have Palou, Malukas, and Ferrucci.
I have Herta, Palou, and Malukas. Both of us with the Palou-Malukas
I just
combo.
realized I didn't put Kirkwood anywhere on here.
Neither did I.
Can I switch?
Go for it.
I'm going to switch out Malukas for Kirkwood.
Okay.
Not that it's more interesting, but I want to win.
Fair, because we're definitely keeping tally.
Yeah, we're
points
definitely
right now,
keeping track.
which we keep saying we're gonna do one of these years, but then we don't.
Yeah, like Malukas has been doing pretty well, but like kind of forgot about Kirkwood.
Winning number of pit stops. What do you got, Ben?
I've got 3 for this one.
I have 2. Formula One, British Grand Prix. Give me your top 5, Ben.
I'm going to say Piastri, Norris, Russell, Verstappen, and Leclerc with Bortoletto as my dark horse. I'm learning.
Yes. I have Norris, Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, and Antonelli with Hadjar as my dark horse.
Interesting that Bortoletto's nowhere on your chart. So weird.
I'm sorry. Fastest lap. What do you got?
I have Lando Norris.
I have Lewis Hamilton. Driver of the day.
George Russell.
I have Lewis Hamilton for that as well. Words of wisdom, Ben.
I said I would think about
You
it.
said you would get it on the fly. What do you got for us? Something about stretching before deadlifts, maybe?
Maybe actually I was thinking about that. Yeah, doing lots of stretching. Getting that the core strength, getting the back strength, just doing little tiny workouts. Because like it's not just for deadlifts, but like in general lifting things up. We're all manly, muscular men, women here, working on cars and doing race car stuff. Lifting the engine blocks out of the cars on our own.
As I do on a daily
As one
basis.
does, yeah.
Yes.
The turbos in those mouse speeds are heavy.
As just the emotional weight of owning one.
Yeah, to carry the emotional weight of owning a Mazda speed product. Just make sure, like, even if you don't work out regularly, just stretching, building core strength helps a lot with back because it's kind of one unit. You use your core to stabilize whenever you lift with your back. So have like core strength and back strength kind of go together. So like working both those at the same time and evenly is super important to not hurting yourself.
Yes.
You can trust me because I hurt my back all the time. So clearly I know what I'm talking
Do
about.
as I say, not as I do.
Hey, at one point I was 2-repping 315 on deadlift.
There you go.
And I know that doesn't sound that impressive, but
I mean, that's not bad.
165 pounds at the time.
That's pretty good. Well, with that all being said, and Ben with his mild flex. No pun
I don't do that
intended.
anymore because obviously I've hurt myself too often, but at one point.
Thank you, everybody, so much for watching and listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, leave a like or rating on the platform you listened on. It really helps us out. Subscribe or follow if you'd like to see more. If you want to see updated standings for IndyCar and Formula One, check out our website, RevHang.com. If you have a question about racing or about us, hit us up on socials and comments or DMs, and we may feature your question in the next show. You can follow Ben on Instagram at BenjiMatesWorld and myself at 2n_squared. You can follow the RevHang page on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, anywhere at RevHang Media. We'll be back in one short week to talk about the Formula One British Grand Prix and the IndyCar race at Mid-Ohio. But until then, I've been Nathan.
And I'm Ben.
Thanks for hanging out.
See you later.